Thank you. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Beagle,
Present?
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Present?
Councilmember Behrman,
Present.
Councilmember Gotchall, Councilmember Grenlund Fox. Here. Councilmember Sharp,
Present.
quorum present.
Thank you. Changes or additions to the agenda as presented tonight. City Manager Brown.
I have no changes, Your Honor.
Assistant City Manager Benson.
I have none, sir.
Any from the dais? Councilmember Gaccho?
Please add new business as a discussion regarding charter amendment for vacancy appointments.
We were going to do that under new business number 1, if that's okay. We're going to discuss that before we do the appointment. That's okay with you.
That's fine.
Well, I know they're two different things, but one goes hand in hand with the other. So I'd like to do that first and then go into the. All right. Anybody else? All right. Approval of minutes. We got one set of minutes to approve tonight, and that's from the regular city council meeting of December 17th, 2024. So a motion?
Support?
Any discussion? I got a motion and a second to approve the regular city council meeting minutes of December 17th, 2024. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Correspondence, we have no items under correspondence tonight, which brings us to the city manager's report. The first city manager's report tonight is the fire monthly report from November 2024. Any questions? Councilmember Behrman.
Sorry for making you stand up. I noticed, I believe it was this week and our last weekend, one of the other local departments was commenting they were on a mutual aid with us for a fire, and I was just more wondering if we could have a summary of how many times we need mutual aid from other departments versus how many times we provide it to other departments, possibly in the future.
Yeah, I can definitely look at trying to establish something like that for you.
It's just, people were going off that tail on that. I mean, is it fair? I mean, are we giving as much as we're receiving, or?
Today, yes, we are. Prior to this, when we were short-staffed, we were unable to give any aid. We were only receiving it. But now at this point in time, we have a very mutual understanding and respect for departments around us, and we go back and forth quite often.
Okay, well, then maybe you just answered my question. I don't need anything further. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Police monthly report from November 2024. Any questions for the chief? All right, very good. Consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished or new business. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Support.
Thank you. I got a motion and a support to approve the consent agenda as presented tonight. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda carries. Call to the public. The rules for the call to the public are as follows. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council, and all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anybody for the first call to the public? Seeing none, I'll close the first call to the public. We have no unfinished business tonight, which leads us to the first item of new business, and that's a recommendation to consider the confirmation of the mayor's appointment of Nicole O'Day to the vacant city council seat effective immediately with a term expiring January 1st, 2028. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. I know Councilmember Gaccho wanted to discuss the charter, but I feel that there's two separate items under this, and the first is the charter understanding and why the term goes to January 20th, 2028. So I figure we'll talk about that first, and then we'll get into the voting to fill the vacancy seat. So with that, City Manager Brown, do you want to give a quick beat on this, and then we'll take it from there?
Yeah, so
that now. Yep. Okay, go ahead.
So in general, there's an issue that's come up with the current city charter language vis-à-vis the charter amendment that was done in 2023. There was, the language that was passed and ultimately inserted into the charter now reads that a person that is appointed to a vacancy shall fill the balance of the unexpired term, which is resulting in an appointment being put before you this evening with an expiration of the appointment of January 1st of 2028. Prior practice before that charter amendment had involved having to sit for election or only being appointed until the next city election, which followed, which in this circumstance would have only been through 01/01/26. So that would have been a difference in practice. Because of the language that the charter was amended to, it now reflects a balance of unexpired term, which puts it through January 1st of 2028. If that's the crux of the issue, is how I would try to quickly summarize it.
Very good. Discussion. Councilmember Gacho.
I would just like to, I guess, why I wanted to put this on new business is to have the language corrected to what we had intended, because when you had called me with the update a week ago, that isn't at all what we had discussed on council, and that wasn't, I don't think, anybody's intended desire to be appointing someone for up to 4 years, like literally 4 years, if something were to happen a day after someone takes office. So I would like to have that go on the November ballot to be recorrected to just alleviate the gap that existed from, what was it, the Monday or Tuesday after the city election in November through January, not for the unexpired term. So that would kind of be my direction, but obviously everyone else needs to share that if they do feel that way too.
I have two questions. If we go to that route, does it have to go before the voters again?
Good evening, everyone. Deborah Walling from Rossetti Schultz Law Firm. Yes, it would, and it could, but I just want to make you aware, I mean, I put in the letter that I believe Mr. Brown shared with you, that if you want it to go to this election, even in May of this year, there's going to be an election, May 6th. Granted, that would mean that you leave the seat vacant for that period of time, which is not desirable either. And so, and I just want to tell you, this was totally, I've been beating myself up since I heard about this a week ago. Why didn't I think of this, or, and I've talked with the Attorney General's office, the person who reviewed it there, who's been doing this for decades. And, he said, well, vacancies are always unforeseeable type things. This was unforeseeable consequence that this arose. Because I was concerned that your explanatory caption didn't mention what this could possibly, the ramification of this scenario that you're presented with today could be. And he said, even if we had recognized it back then, he wouldn't have said that we would have had to put anything about that, because it's such a variable. You never know when a vacancy could occur or whatever. This was not foreseeable in his view, but still, we would have to, changing it to to January after the next election, would be the fix for it. But it would have to go to the voters again, because it would change the charter.
But we wouldn't have to do it necessarily in May, have a special election just for that item. We could wait till November,
I mean,
so.
you wouldn't have to do
Okay.
that at all.
Perfect.
I'm just saying that's an
Yep.
opportunity if you want it done quickly,
Yep.
or November, certainly.
If I can chime in real quick, I think
Sure.
what Ms. Walling was referring to was if you wanted to have a different course of action, you would have to just not appoint somebody until that election in May. If you were to hold an election to try to clarify the language or to do something different
Or to
than the
fill
actual
the
reporting.
seat in May at an
Right.
election.
I think we're just seeking to go back to the original language we submitted, correct?
not the original, it'd be a little bit different. yeah.
What we intended.
Okay, to what we intended, okay.
To just filling the gap, there was
Okay.
no intention of this scenario.
Okay, very good. Councilmember Behrman?
Well, I agree with what what was passed was not what we intended. Ultimately speaking, I think there's a lot of fault on that, possibly drafting it, possibly city management for not catching it, but ultimately it's our fault because we approved it. You gave us the language. I do think that we should go back to what we originally intended. But I also don't think that we should hold up an appointment this evening. We have a valid charter this evening. I'm very comfortable with the person that we've presented this evening. I think that we should move forward with the appointment this evening, which will be, we all recognize, a 3-year appointment, and then fix it so going forward we're not in the same situation again, would be my recommendation.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
I agree wholeheartedly. I think that what's done is done. We approved it the way it was actually drafted. We were the last ones to look at it before it went over to the state. So let's appoint it. I'm very comfortable with the current appointment that's being suggested. I would not like to see us hold up and just have a vacant seat through even May or November, so.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm not sure what this "we intended" means. I voted for the wording that's in there right now, so that's what I intended. I think we all voted for that, so I'm not sure. I thought we were filling the gap between the election day in November and January 1st for any specific term, but my expectation was if we would fill, the nominee or the appointed person would fill out the remainder of the term. That's how I thought this was going to happen. So a couple of weeks ago when I heard it was just through the end of this year, I didn't understand that. So then we reversed it to 3 years. I'm fine with that. I mean, that was my expectation. So I don't think we need to go to the voters again. I'll vote no to do another charter amendment for this, because what we voted on is what my expectation was going to be in the charter. So unless somebody we can discuss it afterwards somewhere and show me my fallacy in my thinking, but I'm good with the procedure tonight and continuing with appointing somebody for a 3-year term for Mr. Smiley. Thank you.
Councilmember Granlund Fox?
So I do agree that we should move forward with the appointment. I also agree that the language that we discussed was not what we voted on, at least most of us. I would not agree to have a special election at any time because of the cost. I don't think that's the way to go. But I do agree that to have someone fill a term going forward, to fill a term for potentially 4 years that wasn't elected is probably not the best way to do that. So we have somebody that's gonna fill a term that equals the term of someone that was actually elected by the people. I don't agree with that, but as far as moving forward, my opinion would be to move forward with the appointment today. If everyone agrees to, or the majority agrees to take it back to a vote, but not a special election. Those are my thoughts.
Very good. Thank you. Yep, and I feel the same way. I think we should continue with this appointment and move on, but also create some language and put it again to the voters the way we intended it to be back last November when we submitted it. So do we need to give?
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
I believe I would ask for a consensus from mayor and council as to what you'd like to see done in terms of, do you want to see a charter amendment correction or not? And if you do, it's really just a matter of letting us come back to you with language to accomplish what the original intent was. And we would just bring that language to you as soon as possible, get it on
Yep.
council agenda for consideration, and let us proceed through the election process if that was the decision that the
Yeah.
majority of council would like to
I think
see.
that's what I think if we took a vote right now, it'd be 5-1 on that, so I think we should go ahead with,
Consensus is to move forward with the
move
charter.
forward with the charter
Thanks.
correction.
Okay.
Yep, very good.
All right,
All right,
comfortable with that, thank you.
Councilmember Gotcho, are you satisfied? Very good. All right, now at this time, if Ms. O'Day will come up to the podium, and as she's coming up, I'll just give a brief. Oh, we haven't voted yet.
Public interview.
But we have a vacancy on the council created by the appointment of Mr. Smiley to be a county commissioner. And we opened it up to the public. We got 10 applications. I performed phone interviews with all the applicants and decided that Ms. O'Day would be the perfect candidate to fill the vacancy up here. And with that, I will let her give a little brief description about herself and that, but it's my honor to seek confirmation from the city council to have Ms. O'Day fill the vacancy immediately for the rest of the term expiring January 1st, 2028, according to the city charter. Go ahead, Ms. Day.
Excuse me. Well, first and foremost, mayor and council members and other elected officials here, thank you so much for this opportunity. I am humbled by just the faith you're placing in me, and I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to work with all of you in serving this community. I've been a Wixom resident now for about 4.5 years. My family and I moved here from Livonia in 2020, where I had been a lifelong resident prior to that. And we chose Wixom for several reasons at the time of our move, not the least of which was that we found it to be comparable from where we were leaving as far as a homey feel and the nice downtown and the services and things of that nature. So again, just grateful to have laid down roots here, and am very much anxious to be part of what brings this city into the future.
Do we have any questions, discussion? Letting her off easy.
Yeah.
Okay. I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to consider the confirmation of the mayor's appointment of Nicole O'Day to the vacant city council seat effective immediately with a term expiring January 1st, 2028. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you swear her in, please?
Deputy.
I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Wixom, Oakland County, Michigan, and I will faithfully discharge the duties and responsibilities of City Council member to the best of my ability. I will. Congratulations. Welcome.
We got our packet.
Do we need to roll call again?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Do we have to do roll call again?
Do we have to do roll call again? Are we good?
No, we're good.
Okay.
Oh, you're there.
Yeah, right here.
You got Mr. Smiley's seat.
Yep. All right, we'll give you a kiss. Ready? All right. Moving on to new business number 2, and that's a recommendation to approve a final site condominium plan, Timberside Reserve, from Pulte Homes of Michigan LLC for the development of 43 single-family residential lots on a 13.46 acre parcel, zone VCA, low intensity at 3015 West Maple, parcel identification number 17-32-176-017, with conditions as recommended by Planning Commission. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Very good. Assistant City Manager Benson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll give this a small introduction, and then I'll hand it over to Matteo Passalacqua with Carlisle Workman Associates to really walk you through this. But the long story short is this is a plan that you've all seen before. The site condominium approval process in the city of Wixom is 4 steps. So you've seen this when you recommended or gave it preliminary site plan approval a few months ago. Since then, the Pulte Homes submitted final site condominium plans to the Planning Commission, which were reviewed and recommended for approval at their December 16th meeting. There were 8 conditions associated with that approval. All of those would be administratively handled after the fact if City Council were to grant approval tonight. With all of that in mind, I'll hand it over to Matteo to kind of walk you through this, and then we can answer any questions you may have. And I'll also note that we do have representatives from the applicants in the audience as well, who can provide additional information or also help answer any questions you may have.
Hey, Drew, just for the record, who's here from the applicant?
Mr. Mike Knowles with Umlor Group.
Okay, very good, thanks.
Good evening, Council. Mayor Matteo Passalacqua with Carlisle Workman Associates. We're the planning consultants for the city. So Drew has mentioned, we're back here tonight to look at the final site plan for the condominium development located off of West Maple Road. We were back, I think we were in front of you guys not too long ago, maybe December, November, and at that time, there was definitely a laundry list of conditions that were associated with preliminary, but because your VCA ordinance is very specific, there was a lot of technicalities and detail that they needed to provide. They did that. I'll keep it shortish and sweet. There's a few more items that need to be addressed, but at the meeting in which the Planning Commission provided the final site plan review and recommendation that council approved the plan, there were some waivers that were provided. Those being that the Planning Commission had waived the landscaping requirements along the northern portion of the property, along the West Maple frontage, because that frontage is actually so small that it's hard to actually meet the landscaping requirements. So what it was provided was something in lieu of a uniform landscaping scheme at the front, which they had done, or they have done with the final site plan. Planning Commission waived the landscape buffer requirements in lieu of a landscaping easement along the north property line to screen from future developments. There wasn't, because the property backs up to other existing residential on West Maple that is very heavily wooded, the screening is kind of already naturally met by what's there. However, in future planning that those lots ever get consolidated and developed into a multi-development site, we wanted to incorporate some landscaping buffers anyways. So they did that via an easement, which was reflected in is reflected in the plan. And then the Planning Commission determined that multiple curbs were acceptable. It's in your ordinance. I got to write it. We figured it out. And that the housing models did meet the intent of the VCA ordinance. So with that, again, there's just a few items to take a look at. The process tonight is that you would be, if you can either vote to approve with conditions, or deny, and that is kind of the end of the road for this project as far as the next steps are concerned. And I'm happy to answer any questions as we go. From a natural resource perspective, there are some EGLE permits that will be required to fill in one of the smaller wetlands on the site. Part of the conversation with the development, if you recall, was the fact that right now they are calling to clear cut the entire site to implement the development. The city does have a program in place where there's an equation that you have to use for how many trees you have to replace when you cut down, and or the option to pay in lieu. They have used a portion of their tree requirements towards the replacement, and then I believe the final count as it relates to replacing the trees, payment in lieu of, I believe that 94 trees would enter into the payment in lieu of program. After that, some of the things that we looked at with the building location and site arrangement was that the VCA ordinance requires developments to connect to neighboring developments if and where possible. So as part of that, when we were looking at the building location and site arrangements, we did note from the from the preliminary plan that there is a stub road and an easement that would it will connect to Theodore from the neighboring residential development to the west. And the stub road and easement is there for connection to Gunnar Matala Park as it relates to the requirement of the VCA ordinance. One of the recommendations that you'll see that the Planning Commission did approve and the applicant was agreeable to was the design of that stub street, not necessarily being this that leads to Gunnar Matala Park, or that would eventually lead to Gunnar Matala Park, is not this abrupt end with bollards and whatnot. It's rounded, it's landscaped. It doesn't necessarily give the impression that it's just this dead-end road, because dead-end roads are actually not permitted in the VCA. So that is one of the recommendations that the Planning Commission passed along to you this evening to consider, and the applicant is agreeable to. Okay, I was making sure, I'm not gonna put you on the spot, but from there, another element of the site access circulation is that we were able to kind of define and work out access to Airline Trail. So that will exist on the southern portion of the development, as well as discussing, the applicant did add some additional crosswalks through the development. We recommended, I believe we recommended 2 more just at internal intersections, and the applicant was agreeable to that as well. We discussed the landscaping easements. We discussed the tree replacement. And again, regarding the tree replacement, the Planning Commission did engage the applicant about, were they able to kind of assess any other means in which some of the mature vegetation on site could be saved. The applicant did provide an explanation as to, again, they looked at it again, kind of tried to work it around, and I'll let them clarify for themselves when they come up, but my understanding is that, again, meeting grading requirements and things of that nature, there really wasn't an option to do so as far as retaining any natural vegetation on site. So again, lighting, there's some lighting information that we need from them as it relates to the fixtures and their distance. That's nothing we can't do administratively. And then we are currently working with them on, approval of the master deed and bylaws, which is something Drew and I's office work on with the applicant. But again, those are more or less technicalities and, that we work on the back end. So with that, we have a few remaining items to be addressed. In the final site plan review that we provided, we have the recommendations of the stub street being designed with rounded edges to promote more aesthetically appealing road ends as opposed to abrupt termination, and the recommendation that the crosswalks meet ADA requirements be provided near Theodore Street, Strobel Street, as well as Caballero Street. And those are recommendations that you could carry forward in your motion night if you choose to. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Garland Fox?
I'm not sure if first of all, thank you for the detailed information. I don't know if this would be a question for you or the developer, but I know you said there was no way to get around the clear cutting. That's definitely off the table at this point, to leave any.
While he steps up, and Mr. Knowles will be able to speak to this better, but I do just want to point out one of the things is when we talk about stormwater drainage and the required gradings to achieve that, to some extent to meet the standards that we have, it's hard to use existing topography and keep existing trees in certain locations where the future utility locations will develop. Mr. Knowles can speak to that, but.
Good evening, Mike Knowles with the Umler Group, NOLES, 49287 Wixom Road, or West Road in Wixom. This is our 5th public meeting on this project, and we did look at that beginning with the 2nd public meeting. So the first one was regarding the VCA architecture to make sure that we could meet your requirements, having the required offsets and the recessed garages and that type of thing. And then we did focus quite a bit at Planning Commission and subsequent meetings and reviews with your staff regarding the grading. So in a site with 43 units on 13 acres, it's a pretty tight site, just the way the VCA was planned. And each one of those homes have to have appropriate drainage away from the houses, driveway slopes, road slopes, rear yard grading, and public utilities, not just the wet utilities of the sanitary, storm, and water, but also the franchise utilities of the power and the phone, the cable, gas. And so we crisscross that site with quite a bit of utilities and quite a bit of grading requirements. So I've been doing entitlement and engineering work for about 30 years. And in my younger days, I used to try to save a tree in the middle. And occasionally we could get one to live temporarily until eventually you disturb the root base so much that the tree would ultimately die. When you change the elevations around it, you change the hydrology around it, you take away all of the natural protection of all of his friends that he grew up with that protect him from the wind and the rain and the snow and all that. So I would say emphatically and conclusively that yes, the clearing that we've done, we have to do. Now this site is wonderful because it is next to Gunnar Metalla Park, and that is a very wooded, beautiful backdrop over there. It's also wonderful because it's got the connection to the rail trail, so you've got that pedestrian connectivity in the neighborhood, and also it's in the VCA. So it's well located and it's got some wonderful amenities. As a developer, we try to save as many trees as possible. We don't generally call them tree saves, we call them lot premiums. So we want to save them because people love trees. They want trees on their yards, and it makes the lots more valuable. So if there was a possibility that we could save the trees, we absolutely would. In the absence of being able to save existing trees on the site, we try to do extensive landscaping. We've met all the landscaping requirements to meet the replacement tree requirements. The reason that Mr. Pasalacqua mentioned that we're going to have to pay into the tree fund is because you have to give them enough room to live and grow. Otherwise, you cram them in there too tight, and you end up with a different problem later. And so we've planted as many trees as we can possibly fit on the site and are meeting the ordinance requirement for tree replacement. So that's kind of the story on the grading and the tree replacement on the site.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Explanation. And then I see that I thought I saw four different styles. Are these two-story, a ranch, or both?
They are. They're two-story homes, all of them.
All of them are two-story?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, are they first-floor master?
None of them are first floor masters.
Okay, and then the price point?
So the price point is going to start probably in the mid 400s, and they'll probably go up to mid 500s, roughly in that range.
Okay.
The market obviously will dictate whether we can go up from there, but that's roughly where they'll start.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Gotchel.
Thank you. In looking at the boring report, I appreciate how big this packet was. I know it was difficult to get uploaded for us to download, but it was nice to have everything. The boring report, it seems a bit rough. It seems like there's a bit of water and soil issues to work with, hence the regrading that's needed. But I didn't know that in certain instances near certain boreholes, it had said that deep foundation systems are going to be needed or recommended. Is that what Pulte intends to use as well? Like they're fully committed to installing those?
Absolutely. While, and I also have Kurt Thomas here. He's with Pulte Homes of Michigan as well with me here tonight. So soils conditions can always be a problem. And it's one of the first things that we review in due diligence, along with the environmental and the title, to uncover any of the deal killers that might be something that, if you start having to put pile foundations in or significant increases in foundation costs, we want to know that very early on. And so that's why we do those tests. And so undercutting and extra deep foundations are, I don't want to say that they're a standard for construction, but they're an acceptable risk. So we've quantified those things of what it's going to be. We've plugged it into our pro forma to make sure it works for the development. Pulte's well aware of it. They're the ones that engaged. I believe it was McDowell and Associates is probably the report you're referring to. And so they're all manageable risk, along with sometimes the water table with dewatering during the sanitary installation. Pulte's land development team is the best, bar none, in southeast Michigan, and they're very well versed in handling dewatering and soils conditions on a site like this. And it's not that extraordinary because it is a smaller site. The quantities aren't astronomical. They're not huge. By contrast, Pulte Homes also did the project in Milford. Wixom provides the sewer service for that project through an intergovernmental agreement, and they moved about 2 million yards of dirt on that project. And so dirt work and extraordinary conditions in dirt is something that we take very seriously. We look at in great detail up front, and this is not something that has scared us away or will scare Pulte away from being able to finish the project.
Okay. I appreciate that. I've actually I sold 2 lakefront lots recently, and they both require deep foundation systems. I don't know what a headache that can be when it comes cost-wise. And so the reason that was important is we have another neighborhood that was built in the early 2000s, Trails of Loon Lake, where extremely wet area, those homes all have foundation issues.
Yeah.
I-beams holding up foundation walls, vaulted first floors because of settling issues. So I want to make sure that we're completely avoiding that, and that we're not going to try to skimp on where piers or pilings might be needed just for the sake of getting a house up. And in 20 years, it's going to be an issue for whoever owns the home.
Right. And Pulte is probably, is without question, the biggest builder developer in southeast Michigan, and they've been doing it for a very long time. This used to be, their headquarters before they moved to Atlanta. And Bill Pulte is from Michigan, so they've been operating here for a very long time. They have very deep pockets, and they understand these types of issues. They're not a fly-by-night operation. They're not cutting corners. They're certainly not cutting corners on any foundation issues, and that's why we look at them up front.
Okay. Few other things here. To touch on the clear cutting, I understand that with the regrading, but as it comes to bordering the airline trail, there's a row of trees there looking at the satellite imaging. I'm not sure if that is within airline right-of-way or if that's a part of the property and those intend to come down, because on the landscape plan we have, it shows trees from the Gunner Metalla area to the one side, but doesn't show anything along the airline trail. And I know we had talked about clear cutting, but also trying to preserve some natural screening. That way we don't have every other lot with a PVC fence and it looks kind of strange for everyone on the airline trail. I'd like it to be a bit more cohesive. So if we're talking needing trees and absolutely everything is coming down, including those, which would seem odd to me because there aren't going to be houses or roads there. I think we need to require trees being put up along the trail.
Yeah, so if I can comment on that, one of the things that we always do is if we have the ability to plant trees on site, that's our first option, obviously. And if a city council is willing to allow, rather than plant or rather than donate to the tree preservation fund, if it's something that will benefit our residents, like planting on somebody else's property, like the tree, as you mentioned, the connection to the trail there, we're more than happy to do it. As Mateo mentioned, there's about 94 trees going into the fund, which is about a $45,000 landscaping package there. We'd much rather plant them on the neighboring property on the rail trail than to just cut a check and say plant them anywhere else in Wixom. So if that's something that you're interested in, I can't say standing here out of memory whether the trees that you're referring to are on their property or if they're on their property, they're staying.
Yep.
But if that's something that you want to authorize your staff to work with us on to plant some trees off-site rather than pay into the fund, we'd be more than happy to accommodate that request.
In looking at the aerials, they seem to be, I know the row of trees you're talking about, I would call them right on the property line. So I would generally agree with your notion that I would think that we don't need to remove those. But, and also to Mr. Knoll's point, I think that we can figure that out and potentially even just have them, do additional plantings along that side. So I think we can figure that out through our tree permitting process. And DPW Director Sigma is obviously here tonight as well, and would be, a big part of that during the tree permitting process. So I do believe, I can't sit here and promise you, I'm pretty sure those are on our property, but it's just the view that I'm looking at, which you don't have the benefit of seeing, they seem to be right on the line, that line.
And usually the ones right on the line stay, because we don't like to get into disputes with neighbors over whether we're cutting down our tree or cutting down your tree. And in that particular area, there's not a ton of grading that needs to happen, because we have to match existing right at the property line anyways. So those are always great opportunities to save trees. So we'd be happy to look at that, with your staff to come to that conclusion.
Would we have to amend anything for us, or is that included in what planning commission has already kind of flagged as being handled
Let me
administratively?
recheck. 'Cause the recommendation before you tonight is to approve with the recommendations approved by the planning commission. What I would suggest, if this is helpful, is the motion tonight could be amended to, and where it says, with conditions as recommended by the planning commission, as well as the additional condition of,
Additional by council?
yeah, council could amend your motion to approve the final site condominium plan with the conditions as recommended by the planning commission and the additional condition to review ownership and maintenance of the trees along the western border of the site along the airline trail. Something to that effect, and I think that would cover the intent of what we're looking to do.
Yep, southern.
So, oh, that is southern, I apologize, you're right.
All right, thank you. The last item I just had here was the sub-street, and I understand like the concept of rounding, but in the detailed plan that, or this general standards sheet we were given, it still looks to have like a wood, metal, and signed off barricade for the sub-street without any plantings or anything like that. So what is the difference? Because I know you'd mentioned we're gonna have it rounded and have it landscaped, but if we're approving this and it looks like this, then this is what we get.
Yes, sir. So that's an additional condition that Mr. Passalacqua mentioned was in the planning requirements and that we've agreed to. So concurrently with running through the preliminary site plan and final site plan, we also have a requirement to do the final construction documents and permitting. And we are concurrently running that process as well. We're expecting to get our first engineering review back from the city's engineering consultant, Mike Darga, on Thursday. It's our first round of reviews. We can incorporate any grading change at that location through the final engineering process without a problem.
Thank you. I just want to make sure, because I'm still not a fan of the substreet. I know, or at least we've been told that property in Gunner Matella is very wet. I don't see us putting a road in there and bearing that expense for the future. I would almost just prefer that was a larger lot, then you can charge a nice lot premium. It'll have a longer driveway to get to the intersection, but that'd be my preference.
Councilmember Behrman?
Thank you. I guess I understand the logic of the road to Gunner Matella, and I appreciate the planning commission addressing that in the report. And if we're going to round it, I guess I'm fine with that. My question was really on the lighting. Is the lighting on the property then going to be turned over to the city, or is it going to be managed by the complex?
So typically how Pulte does it is they enter into the DTE program, and DTE will install it, and it'll be paid for by the complex, through the HOA.
They're going to be the decorative lights that match the rest of the downtown?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the intent. I don't know if they'll match exactly the downtown ones. I'm sure that.
Same or similar?
Very similar, correct.
I'll make sure
But I guess then maybe my question for Tim is, in the existing community or streets, Are we responsible for any of those? Because there seems to be a real big issue with them getting their lights replaced. Like, there's a bunch of them out, and people are always complaining about them being out.
Yes, there's always trouble, with that. We have a couple right here in Sibley Park that we argued about for a while. But other than those 3 by Sibley Park, the rest of them remain in the Tribute or there are other subdivisions there.
So it's going to
It's their
be
responsibility.
ultimately DTE's responsibility to keep them lit?
It'll be the HOA's responsibility to pay DTE to make sure that they stay lit. DTE won't take the responsibility, but they make it really easy for you
But
to
it's
use.
not us, the city.
It's not the city.
Fair enough. That was my only question. Thank you.
Well,
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you, Mayor. Just continue with the lighting question. I looked at the Visionaire photometric study. The last high-density development that I remember was Stonegate that we did, and there was a lot of complaints of residents, early residents, on not so much the intensity, but the temperature of the light. And I know that a lot of times people want to go to these super bright
Right.
white LEDs, and the 2700 Kelvin are more appealing to the eye or whatever.
Right.
So I don't know if that's part of the requirements now.
So usually each of those heads usually have 2 or 3 different temperature choices that you can select on your final specification sheet, and those are usually specified on our landscaping plans. We can specify a calmer color on that. I know Milford has some of the same requirements for the calmer lights. We're absolutely willing to do that. Lighting is interesting because it's one of those you can't win. So some folks want more, some folks want less. The uplighting in the night sky, that's the wrong color, it's too bright. My wife just had me change a light bulb in her family room because she wanted it to be yellower than, so we really have no personal preferences. We're simply trying to, thread the needle to meet the ordinance and to provide some lighting for safety. So if there's a preference on color or shielding, we're more than happy to accommodate.
It did come up during Stonegate development, so I just
Yeah,
wanted to point that out.
it always does.
Regarding the stub,
Yeah.
I understand that, the rounded curbs be an intention, but, with 43 homes, multiple story, that there'll be a lot of kids, and they're gonna want bike and pedestrian access over there, to get to the pickleball courts or, just the soccer fields or whatever in Gunner Metallic.
Right.
Without having to do the end around to go to the airline trail.
Right.
So, as Councilman Gottschall brought up, there's usually that metal barrier at the end of those stub streets. So I'd rather see natural landscaping.
Yeah.
Because kids will find a way.
Yeah, they'll find a way, whether we put a barrier or whether we put natural landscaping. They'll beat a path through the woods to the park for sure. I did when I was a kid. You probably did too. So they will. But yeah, we're more than happy. We don't want to eliminate the stub street because it does give you the possibility of tying in if that's the city's wish in the future. It's also necessary for the lot configuration there because there's a driveway that comes off that stub street. So we looked at this through the preliminary process as well and decided let's make it look nicer and still have the option to tie into it should the city want to do that in the future.
And then my last comment, I brought it up at the last meeting, was disappointed that there's no ranches, no master, first floor masters. When I took a recent drive around Canton and Lyon Township and noticed that there were developments with quite a mix. And
Yeah.
as the older generation wants to downsize, it takes
I'm
that
in-
out of the equation. So
I'm in a first floor master myself now. I'm going to be 57 next month, so I get that part of it too. Pulte has a lot of different developments, and they kind of program their target audience here. And this is kind of a family target here for this particular product. It's close to the park. It's in a very family-oriented community, and that's what who they've targeted as their audience. And plus, they already have 830 active adult sites right down the street over in Milford. So they were looking to fill this market niche, and that's what they've programmed for the site.
Understood.
Yeah.
Not my business plans, but- All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Getchell.
Does there need to be an amendment to the motion?
It would probably be best if you did make an amendment to add that additional condition.
Through today, just, I mean, because we kind of helped the planning commission through that process, you replace DC with city council being the report, adding the third item being the trees along Airline Trail, and that worked for them to read. If that's the wrong way.
Yeah, no, what I recommend, because the motion that we recommended to city council and that they opened to this item with is a condensed version of that. So, as I said kind of before, I would just add at the very end of it, with conditions as recommended by the planning commission, as well as and the additional condition, and actually City Manager Brown had some nice concise language.
So try to keep it simple. So conditions as recommended by the planning commission, and with the added condition that existing trees along the shared southerly border are not to be cleared. That clear enough? Get the point across?
Yeah, I guess, or replanted if they are removed.
Are you comfortable with the not?
I
to be
am
cleared?
comfortable with that, City Manager Brown, yeah.
Not to be cleared.
Not to be cleared, the ones on the property.
They don't
line.
want to clear it. So.
Well, no, I think beginning to look at it, maybe it needs to be replanted. I mean,
That I can't speak to. I was just trying to go to the, what I thought.
Yeah, I would just, like, if they come down, they need to be replanted. That way.
And or replanted?
Yeah, if they
Yeah.
aren't removed, then phenomenal. If they are, we're not gonna leave it that way.
Fair enough.
Are not to be cleared or to be replaced.
So moved.
Right.
Fair enough.
So we've got the amended motion, and who seconded that?
I'll second it.
Okay. So, do we need to vote on the amended motion? Okay. Approval of the amended motion is read by City Manager Brown. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, and then I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to approve a final site condominium plan Timberside Reserve from Pulte Homes of Michigan LLC for the development of 43 single-family residential lots on a 13.46 acre parcel zone VCA low intensity at 3015 West Maple. Parcel identification number 17-132-176-017 with conditions as recommended by the Planning Commission and the amended stated by City Manager Brown. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're looking forward to getting going.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. New business number 3 is a recommendation to accept Hubbell Roth and Clark's proposal for a comprehensive safety action plan and a Beck Road corridor safety study for a total not to exceed $160,000 from engineering expense account number 202-553-974.400. Authorize DPW Director Tim Sickma to sign and accept the Federal Highway Administration Office Safety Grant and approve the requested budget amendment. Motion?
Support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sickma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, what we have before you is a safety grant that we applied for back in May of last year. And the federal government came through with this grant for us. What it primarily does is 2 things. It's an overall safety grant to look at all of the pedestrian and traffic safety issues or items in the city as a whole, and possibly help us with developing a portion of the master plan with that. The second part of that is specifically for Beck Road and the Beck Road corridor, and we find that this would be helpful in the future if we do get future grants, which we are applying for possibly a grade change to go over the railroad or widening of Beck Road in the future. And this is one of the steps that we found will be helpful for that. It is a planning grant, so HRC helped us with the grant application, and we feel that it's prudent that they help us with this. And yeah, primarily because they also helped us with that application in told them they'll help us fulfill the promises that we had in that planning grant. So yeah, with that, the budget amendment is kind of an in and out portion. So the city would have to pay for it initially, and then we would be reimbursed through the federal government. And it is a $200,000 grant with, was it 20%? So we would actually pay $40,000 for it, but that would be part of the local match, which would be our time and staff time for that. So it's really a very good decision in my part, or I feel that it is to do this grant. I'd be open to any questions.
I can save us a little bit of money and tell you the railroad tracks on Beck Road are horrible right now, so.
They are. In fact, we've had several emails back and forth just this week on that with Lake State and possibly looking at further grants with that. So this would help with that.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Sickman, the end game for this, of course, for 10 years, we've been on this committee trying to get money from the feds or the state or the county to try to get the Beck, the improvement in the corridor itself. If we go through with this safety study, right, and you said as well as the grade crossing study, does it eliminate any of the preliminary engineering? Should we ever get funded for this?
So that it, yes, it's one step towards our goal. Another step is the environmental audit that we are working with the city of Novi with right now. There is a plan in place for that as well. And each of those steps, especially with the grant process, is one step closer to our goal. And as we lean into it, and this is the first federal grant that we've received for this project, we feel that it'll be money well spent in the future, that we show that they've already spent this much, and this is what the directive was, and these are the recommendations. Therefore, it does make sense to do grade crossing or to widen the road at that point. So all those safety factors add into our next grant application that we would do.
So this will build
It's a good step.
towards a better possible. I know federal highways, then at least
Right.
you'd be in good stead with them if you've gone through the safety study, right?
Right, and they're familiar with us and our project, and they it's in their crosshairs, if you will, at that point.
But realistically, we may not get.
No
this
promises.
For another
Right.
10 years or whatever.
Correct, but we could still use it even then.
Now, as a result of the safety study, let's go back to that. We had talked about safety islands a la Beck Road and Novi. Would those sorts of recommendations come out of the study?
That is one of the things that we would be looking at. There'd be, pedestrian crossings, the crash data. It looks at all of the different roads that we have in Wixom, not only Pontiac Trail, which is a major one that we were looking at with Oakland County, but then also all of our side streets and Maple, Potter Road, and West Road as well.
And portions of that corridor are half and half, right? Novi.
Beck Road is designated all to the city of Wixom up to 12 miles.
All the way to.
All the way to 12 miles.
All right. Okay.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Sickman, I have three questions. When we say Beck Road corridor, we're just referring to I-96 northbound from 96?
That is correct, yeah.
Is anybody doing the same thing south of 96?
City of Novi has done some items on that already, I believe. And in fact, they did receive a grant for a portion from what?
Grand River to 11.
From Grand River, yeah, to 11 mile. So,
When do we think the study will be complete? I saw a lot of words in the packet, but not a lot of numerical data.
Right.
Not that when is the numerical data, but I'll get there.
Right.
So when do we think $160,000 is going to be spent?
So, I kind of, under promise and over deliver in that concept. So we had anticipated by the end of 2027, but Mike Darga is here from HRC and he could give a better explanation on the actual timeframes.
Sure.
I think September 2026 would be more.
September 26th? For this portion, the study? It sounds like a year and a half, so you've got an engineer working on it full-time kind of thing, or what's?
Yeah, off and on, there's a lot of times we have meet the road commission, SUNCOG, there's meetings and coordination and stuff, so there'll be times where they're working on it full-time and when we fall into it. But there are a lot of study type things with crash analysis.
Data collection.
So it's gonna be more than one year.
Sure. I'm just talking hours.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's probably over 1,000
Okay. And then 160,000, I didn't see in the packet, and maybe this is historical from this forum previously, but why 160,000? Was there data that's the best estimate, better than any other engineering firm could offer, or was that because you guys wrote the grant, you're making sure you get the 160?
The $200,000 that was submitted for was what you can apply for the grant. That 160 number is based on past or other safety grants we've done. If we don't use a full 160, then we'll charge for that.
The hourly rates are very similar to what we've seen in other firms.
So you've seen some of the data on the number of hours and how we arrived at $160,000, because that wasn't in the, there's no numerical
We
data.
do have
in
a table for
packet,
that.
but you've seen that, Mr. Sigma?
Yes, I can send that to you.
Probably not necessary, but
Right.
I was just wondering, how did we get to that number? It's been studied. It's not just, hey, we can apply for 200, let's go for 200.
No, it was studied before the application actually, and then it is part of the table for the proposal that you see before you. But
Okay.
it wasn't it's not in the packet. I
Oh, okay.
apologize for that.
All right.
So it's-
So there's some
An
more
extra
detail,
sheet.
and besides
There is.
the final number, there's, because usually HRC puts a pretty detailed list of principal engineers, surveyors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and all. Is that all available somewhere for?
That wasn't
that
noted, I'm
part of that
sorry.
grant?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, I'm good, thank you.
Assistant City Manager Benson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add just one or two points of context in support of Mr. Sigma. You all may recall the safety audit that we received for downtown. I believe we presented that all to you in November. I bring that up to say what's in front of you tonight is essentially a much larger version of that is comprehensive of the whole city. So a lot of kind of the recommendations or the methodologies that you saw there would be included in this, but also in a more in-depth version. I believe that study, which we received a SEMCOG grant for, that 20,000, and I think we had to pay 10%, so we paid 2,000 for that.
Right.
So just as a point of reference too, kind of in the cost, we were talking about a tenth of a square mile area that was that study area. Granted, more intersections, but again, just for context of kind of the cost. I wanted to sort of touch on the Beck Road corridor study piece, and I would say that from an engineering perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but there wouldn't really be any road engineering per se done as part of this. So this study really evaluates on Beck Road, what are the issues? It goes into a much greater level of detail that will support any future grants or even really the design factors that go into it. But I also just want to clarify, I don't think we'd get, road geometries to say like, hey, here's a biddable set of plans or anything like that, but it would inform a project that come out of it in a way that the federal government we believe would be more receptive to, considering they paid for how we found out. So that, I wanted to add those two.
Bottom line on the Beck Road widening and rail overpass project is it's largely safety focused is what we're focused on in much of our grant application materials. This is going to be complementary, supplemental to that information and provide a better case for us when we go to funding sources, as Deputy Mayor Resnick mentioned. So.
Councilmember Cacho.
Thank you. Relating to the railroad crossing, I know we've always talked grade separation and whatnot. This says grade elimination. Does that mean bridge, or are we talking like a few weeks ago, I had mentioned the idea of like evening out the grades because right now the tracks are on a hill? Like, is that going to be looked at, or are we just solely focused on ramp?
They'll both be considered.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All right. Thank you, Mr. Dark. I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to accept the Hubble, Roth, and Clark's proposal for a comprehensive safety action plan and a Beck Road corridor safety study for a total not to exceed $160,000 from engineering expense account number 202-553-974.400. Authorize DPW Director Tim Sikma to sign and accept the Federal Highway Administration Office Safety Grant and approve the requested budget amendment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks. Don't go too far, Tim.
Thank you.
New business number 4 is a recommendation to introduce a mandatory ordinance to the City of Wixom Code of Ordinances, Title 17, Environment, to add Chapter 17.10, Illicit Discharge Elimination Program, to regulate non-stormwater discharges. Do I have a motion?
Support.
Very good. That was a little bit quicker this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Yeah, this one is kind of a request from Eagle for the introduction of an ordinance that would look at illicit discharges to the stormwater. And one of an illicit discharge in this case would be anything other than stormwater that would go into the navigable streams of Michigan. So if there was a fire and the firemen put it out with water that is now contaminated with, things in the house or whatever, that would be an illicit discharge if we don't make an exemption for it. And what we're doing here in this ordinance is creating exemptions for things that are non-hazardous and such as the fire and or condensate from a refrigerator or refrigeration system or other things. So this is a recommendation from the state as part of our NPDES application process for the next round of permitting that we're looking at. There are a number of other hoops that we're jumping through for the MS4 plan, but this was the one that we would need to move forward with the application. With that, I'll open up to questions.
Councilmember Graham Fox?
So something you just said, I hadn't thought about it before, but you're talking about any of the runoff of the water from fighting a fire, or you mentioned a refrigerator or something. So would this allow those to go into the system?
Yes, there's exemptions for that, and if, there's a list of exemptions, I can't remember what page it's on. But
and it's not a problem?
There's a number of them, no, and that's the thing, they're non-toxic, and they're short-lived, and the point is to protect the waters of the state.
Right.
And with those kind of things that happen on an almost daily basis, washing your car was one of them. So discharge from your swimming pool if you're dechlorinating it, those are all other items that are part of that exemption process.
And how will this be monitored and then enforced?
So that also is included in there now. So DPW would look for those kind of things if there's problems with that. And we would also get help from our code enforcement for that, which is listed in the ordinance as well.
'Cause that sounds like it could be a big job to monitor and enforce that. I don't.
It could potentially, but that's yeah, it's a big job regardless. And with the monitoring that we're required to do now for illicit connections, we have almost 100 different outfalls in Wixom, and we have to monitor them, half of them twice each monitoring cycle. So every 5 years, we have to start. So that would be the process that we would use to determine problems within this water system, and then also be able to give us enforcement on issues that do come up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. Kind of following on what Councilmember Grown Fox just asked about enforcement, I saw in the packet that the code enforcement officer would be responsible for enforcement. I'm very protective of her hours. And I hope we're not expanding her scope before she's gotten her feet wet doing what she was hired to do, which is get boats out of front yards and other things like that. Do you foresee a budget increase coming for more people or more hours for our current enforcement officer? Or how are we gonna, as Councilmember Ground the Fox said, it sounds like a big job to monitor all water going into the storm sewer system.
I'm not big on adding ordinances to begin with. This one was one of the requirements. I went back and forth for about a month and a half with Eagle on this particular one, and we kind of settled on this. But yeah, our attorneys have looked at it. Initially, I don't anticipate much of a problem with it, only that because we don't see illicit discharges here. We have a separate sanitary sewer system from the stormwater. The add on this part is, or this next round of permit cycle, if you will, over the next 5 years, we'll need to figure out how to sample all these outfalls. And I'm working through a sampling plan with the state that they would have to, I guess, authorize at that point. So there might be some add there, but right now we plan to do it within our scope at the DPW or hire someone.
So identification of the issue would be in your department?
Initially.
And then if there's something that needs further communication with the homeowner or whoever it is, then it would go to the code enforcement officer to take it from there.
Yep. I mean, I've responded to a number of them, you know, I do respond to them throughout the year, and yeah, initially it's not that I guess tough to do.
Okay, thank you.
Assistant City Manager Benson.
Just to, again, add a little bit of flavor to what Tim's getting at, I think the way that this language is written really gives the city flexibility of who can enforce this, because, you know, we also have, you know, the building official or other designees who have the ability to write tickets or to take enforcement action. So this is not written to put that responsibility on that person specifically. And generally speaking, yeah, most stormwater drainage situations are handled by Public Works. Now, the bigger question of, you know, when we talk about things like stormwater management, wetlands, you know, woodlands, all of these things, there's some merit to. The more rules we put in place, the more enforcement tools, you know, we have to maintain those. And that even comes down, you know, to this. But more than anything, and Tim, tell me if you disagree with this, but what this ordinance really allows us to do is have something that is clear and objective, that if there are violations that we run into, that we can very clearly say, and in compliance with the state's regulations, hey, you can't do that, right? You can't connect that discharge can't go there. So if nothing else, what this ordinance does is strengthens, gives us more teeth. And then, you know, the resources we put behind enforcing it or looking for issues, you know, that's a different conversation, I would say. But, you know, we're not anticipating any changes to staffing to accommodate this new ordinance at this time.
That'd be budget.
Okay.
Give me 2 months. Well, we'll think of something.
Any further discussion? Deputy Mayor Resnick?
I assume that 99% of these types of things that are being investigated anyway happen south of Pontiac Trail in our industrial areas, correct?
That is a number of them, yes. There are drainage issues that occur in the subdivisions as well. We respond to they have, like Wildwood has 4 retention detention basins that they're required to maintain. And so if there's flooding in a given area, and that would help us, say, hey, this is your ordinance, or this is our ordinance, you're required to do it. Now, we have an agreement already with that subdivision for the retention detention agreement, but this would, as Drew would say, give it a little.
As far as illicit dumping, you don't
Right.
really have that type of.
No, we
thing
don't.
as much.
And
Maybe, I don't know, back in, the 1950s, we used to change our oil and this is dump it in the alleys.
there is that. And I think, we're a lot cleaner than in the streams than we used to be. Norton Creek is a stream that has low dissolved oxygen and high sediments, and this is another way to help protect that in the future.
But should another tri-bar incident occur, you're on top of it anyway, so it's not like a code enforcement officer is going to go knocking on tri-bar's door.
Right. Yeah. And in that situation, the state did step in and help us with that, and that's where we primarily got our teeth last time. So.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to introduce a mandatory ordinance to the City of Wixom Code of Ordinances, Title 17, Environment, to add Chapter 17.10, Illicit Discharge Elimination Program to regulate non-stormwater. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Tim. And that concludes the business portion of this meeting tonight. This moves us to the second call to the public. I'll read those rules again. And the public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence, and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council, and all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Mr. Meredith, you're up.
Good evening, Russ Meredith, 378 Fletcher, here in Wixom. I just want to draw your attention to the great work of Mr. Sikma and the DPW staff during the recent Snowmageddon, Snowzilla snowstorm, where I got up in the morning, walked outside with my cup of coffee, stepped on the porch, and the road was clear. So in my case, I went back inside and read the newspaper, but a lot of my neighbors were really thrilled that the roads have been taken care of. And it's just another example of the kind of service we expect from DPW, our police department, our fire department, the city staff. They do an outstanding job with the resources they have, and it's one of the great reasons Wixom's such a good place to live. So I just want to draw your attention to that and give a shout out to DPW and the others.
It's not services we expect, it's the services that we get from them are outstanding.
Yeah, and it's more than you can expect sometimes with their resources. So thanks,
Yep.
Kim.
Like they say, they always know, people who work out of town, they always know when they're close to home because the roads are clear, so. Anybody else for the second call to the public?
If you forgot the podium board.
Yeah. At least he didn't come all the way up here and sit down. But.
I was tempted earlier. This is weird. I'm not here for any, I'm sorry, Robert Smiley, 2745 Hillcrest. That's a Wixom. I'm not here for any county business. I came strictly just in support and congratulation of our new council person. So, council person O'Day, welcome to government service and congratulations. You got a great bunch of people up there to learn from, so tap into them and you'll do just fine. Congrats and thanks.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on your new adventure as well.
Oh, it's an adventure, yes. I don't have a business card yet or anything. I just got sworn in yesterday, so I'll be meeting with Steve and City Manager Brown, and we'll, you know, get that stuff, I'll start. Don't want to be act too casual up here,
I
you
mean, no business cards, but you got that big raise? What's up with that?
I had nothing to do with that. Anyway, thanks and congrats.
Thanks, Rob. City manager comments, City Manager Brown.
Yeah, so just one item from the city manager's update, and it was regarding a communication from the Lakes Area Youth Assistance that had sent a thank you to the DPW staff for basically working to benefit a needy child in the Walled Lake Consolidated School District. They were very kind with their praise and appreciation for the DPW's efforts and fundraising in that regard. So I wanted to pass that on and to say congratulations to the DPW for stepping up and making a difference during that holiday season. And that was the only thing that was on the city manager update, other than the dates to remember, which there's a variety of things going on as per usual. If there's anything I can answer that comes up as a question, I'll be happy to take a shot at it. Otherwise, that was the extent of my city manager update for this week.
Assistant City Manager Benson.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. One, just to put it on City Council's radar, with the master plan update process kind of getting kickstarted, I would just want to put it on your radar that we'll be working to coordinate a joint meeting between the City Council, Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Downtown Development Authority, likely in early February. Hopefully everyone's available. We'll have a couple different dates, but the idea will be for a kind of bigger plan-to-plan meeting, really get priorities out there, have some good conversations about the general direction of the process, and helping Planning Commission as they do their kind of steering committee work on that. So more information to come that I'll distribute after this, but I want to put it on your radar to you know, when you see something about a joint meeting, don't be surprised. And the other thing I'll mention is coming up at one of your next meetings. We don't have any dates set in stone, but you should expect to see an update from Guide Studio related to the signage work that they've been doing. 90% concept plans, you know, basically getting ready to get your final feedback and either your sign off or, you know, any, you know, final changes you want to look at. So just something to look forward to at one of your next couple meetings. With that, if you have questions about anything, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, very good, thank you. Council comments, Councilmember Behrman.
Thank you. Really, just welcome. Glad to have you, and thank you to the other 9 residents that did apply. It's nice that we had such a vast number of people interested, including, I believe, 2 people in the audience. So thank you for taking the time to apply. I hope everybody stays involved, and look forward to moving forward.
Very good. Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, welcome to new Councilmember O'Day. It's good to have you up here, and I'm still on the end somehow, but I'm just kidding.
That's because I couldn't move you down there, that's all.
And Happy New Year, and go Bucks, Monday night.
Are they still playing? Are they
They're
still
playing.
I thought they got beat by the national champions a couple weeks ago. Councilmember Grumman Fox.
So I too would like to welcome Councilmember O'Day. And I wanted to comment on Lakes area. And I think it's great that we get involved and that Jody was so involved. It's a great organization. I'd love to see more companies within the city get involved. It's especially during the holidays because they help so many kids and families. So great job with that, and that's all.
Councilmember Gacho.
Thank you. I also want to share my welcome to our newest council member. Look forward to working with you. I did have a quick question for Mr. Sigma about our wastewater sludge being used as fertilizer. Is that still on? We're still giving that out, selling it, what have you?
The biosolids from the wastewater treatment plant are currently going to landfill.
Okay. All right. Have we been testing those for PFAS still or no?
We do test them for PFAS, and actually we do we are below the limits for land application
But it's
currently.
still present,
It's,
just below some numbers,
it's,
somebody.
yeah, it's well below the accepted levels at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember O'Day.
Well, actually, again, thank you to everyone for this very warm welcome. I truly appreciate it, and will do my best to help the city, help the council, help the residents. When I was up there earlier, when I was speaking, I realized it was kind of like the awards show, right? Like, hopefully TMZ doesn't pick up on it, but my husband and daughter are here, and you know, I didn't mean to slight them in the least by, you know, don't gossip why I didn't thank them for being here, their support. So I'm very appreciative of that. And I guess the only other thing I will say, you know, somebody posed a question to me last week about what's a Wolverine to do when it's the Buckeyes and the Irish. And I say, go Irish.
You want to have a tie bet with me? That's an old, long story.
Very good. Deputy Mayor Resnick.
I would also like to welcome Councilwoman Day. Great to see the enthusiasm and the outpouring of interest this time. Usually it's slim pickings, but it's good to see. And hopefully in April, when issues come up, we get some people applying. Also, just want to remind those online and others that skate nights will run from this Thursday all the way through February 27th, weather permitting. And this year, it's the first year, it seems like weather will be permitting for ice skating on the pond. So get out there, get, you know, dust off the old skates, get the rust off them, and get out there. That's all. Thank you.
All right, and I too want to welcome Councilmember O'Day to council. I'm very excited to have you on board here and excited to see what you're going to bring up here. And also thank you to her family for her support. I mean, you guys will understand as time goes by, there's a lot of time involved in this, and there's a lot of time away from the family. We appreciate that. And I just want to also thank Clerk Opelko for all her help with me on this process of sending out emails and guiding me and directing me and collecting the applications, things like that. So thank you so much for that. And also, with the cold weather coming in, city's going to open up the area here for a warming center. So, you know, there's people. I'm like, I don't think it's that bad. Is it cold?
Freezing.
Well, we'll turn the heat up then.
We do supply blankets too.
That's what we were talking about when we missed the vote
Oh.
on the motion.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Well, maybe we can put a fire in the fire, build a fire in the trash can or something, but.
We're discussing a lengthy budget session.
But anyway, so.
Stepping into the breach, the fire chief is gone, but I definitely don't approve of it.
It'll still be warmer than it is outside, so, with that. So, and then I just want to say, go Lions, and I guess go Big Ten. I can't go any further than that. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everybody.